Did you know that in the middle of the night on August 6, 2010, half of this mountain suddenly and catastrophically collapsed, resulting in one of the largest recorded landslides in Canadian history? This is the Mount Meager Massif, a group of volcanic peaks located in southwestern British Columbia, about 90 miles north of Vancouver. The Mount Meager Massif consists of 6 major peaks, shown here, including Mount Meager itself, and it rises to a maximum elevation of 8,790 feet. This complex is the northernmost part of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, and while it hasn't erupted in more than 2,000 years, it can potentially have a major eruption which would have significant impacts on the surrounding region. In fact, the last eruption of the Mount Meager Massif, which occurred roughly 2,400 years ago, was the largest eruption in all of Canada in at least the last 10,000 years. However, eruptions aren't the only hazards posed by this large group of volcanoes, as the Mount Meager Massif is also highly susceptible to large landslides. Some sources argue that the Mount Meager Massif is the most unstable mountain in all of Canada and is home to one of the most active landslide areas in the country as well. In total, the complex has produced at least 20 major landslides in the last 10,000 years, most recently in 2010, when it produced what is thought to be the largest recorded landslide in Canadian history. The 2010 landslide occurred a little after 3 a.m. on August 6th when the southern portion of Mount Meager itself, shown here, suddenly collapsed in a series of major rockfalls. You can see the area that initially failed, which is essentially half of the mountain, outlined by the white dashed line in the figure above. Now, these initial rockfalls fell about 500 feet onto the highly unstable south-facing slope of Mount Meager, where they triggered a massive debris flow, which is a type of fast-moving, highly mobile landslide. This debris flow was truly massive, as we can see in this image here. In total, it ran out more than 6 miles from the spot of the initial failure and mobilized more than 48 million cubic meters of sediment. For reference, a standard dump truck can move about 10 cubic meters of sediment per load, which means that the Mount Meager landslide mobilized nearly 5 million dump trucks worth of material. The landslide was large enough that it actually produced seismic waves that could be measured more than 1,700 miles away in both Southern California and northern Alaska. Fortunately, because the Mount Meager landslide occurred in a remote and mostly uninhabited area, there were no injuries or deaths reported as a result of this event, despite its massive scale. However, it still resulted in approximately 20 million Canadian dollars in direct and indirect losses, most of which was associated with the loss of wood that could have potentially been logged. Nowadays, the Mount Meager landslide is a famous and heavily studied event, but it serves